It's January in Florida, and even though we're in the middle of this Arctic blast, now is a great time to plant so many vegetables. Today I'm going to talk you through 25 different vegetables that we can be planting in the month of January. And as I do that, I'm going to be harvesting some crops along the way. Let's get into it. My first crop to plant in the month of January is arugula. I picked up these seeds from Botanical Interest, and I'm going to go ahead and sow them right now. Now, I typically only use arugula as a garnish on top of eggs or a homemade pizza, so I'm really only going to plant enough for half a square foot in my garden right now. I can always add more later and kind of stagger the planting, but that's the way I'm going to start. Arugula is very fast growing, so I should expect to be able to harvest this arugula in the next 30 to 60 days. The second crop is collards. Now, I just harvested 2 really big crops of collards, and we ate them as part of our traditional New Year's dinner. If you didn't know, greens on New Year's actually represent prosperity or money in the new year, and so it's very common in America for people to eat greens on New Year's Day. Let me know in the comments below if you guys ate your greens on New Year's. The next crop you can start in the month of January is kale. This is a lacinato kale right here, and what I love about it is it's flat leaves, so it's really easy to clean, really easy to check for pests, and really easy to harvest. Fun fact, if you harvest with a cut and come again method, these stalks will continue to grow upward and you can end up with something that looks like a tree in your garden. I haven't harvested anything off of this one yet, so let's do it right now. Now I'm just going to cut starting from the leaves that are on the outside and the lower part first. And then I'm going to use my brand new Felco F14 shears that are really good for smaller hands. So they actually fit my hands really well. One of my subscribers actually mentioned that I pick up some Felco pruners, and I had already had them on my Amazon wish list for a while, so I just went ahead and bought them and couldn't be happier. Look at how easy these things are to use. And just like that, we will harvest the kale. I can harvest as much or as little as I want. I think I'm gonna have some salad for dinner tonight, so I'm gonna harvest quite a bit. The next crop is lettuce. Now, I tried to plant lettuce earlier this season and it didn't even germinate, so I'm gonna try again. This time I'm actually gonna try it in the garden tower too. I have not direct sowed any seeds in this garden tower before. It's fairly new to me. I've only had it for like 4 months, and I've got strawberries and onions growing in it right now. But I have some spare pockets that I need to make use of. So I'm going to plant some of these thank you seeds from Botanical Interest. I know some of you out there have the same packet, so let's plant them in January together. Put a little bit of seeds in there, water them in, and I will repeat this on all my empty pockets in the garden tower. The next crop is endive. I've grown this before, and it's actually a really cool looking green. You would probably recognize it most from one of those spring mix packages at the grocery store. They normally have some endive mixed in. It's a great way to increase the variety of the greens that you have in your salad. So I'm going to go ahead and plant this. I think I'll squeeze it in some of these pockets in the garden tower too and see how they turn out. Now, like most lettuces, we're only going to sow them about 1/4 inch deep, which is just barely beneath the surface. Lettuces generally do well in cold weather. And again, I will water them in. The last leafy green I want to mention today is spinach. Now, I've always struggled with growing spinach, and so after watching one of Jera's garden videos, she introduced me to Tatsoi, which is a heat-tolerant spinach substitute. Now, even though it's heat-tolerant, it also tolerates light frost and even gets a little bit more flavorful and sweet with a little bit of cool weather. So I'm going to go ahead and plant it in the month of January and see how this one turns out. I picked it up on her website. I'll put a link to it in the description box below if you're interested in trying it too. Now moving on. I need a better tripod. Now let's move on to brassicas. We're talking about broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, cabbage, all of those greens that take a little bit more time than your leafy salad greens. Now, especially for South Florida, this is probably the last month you're going to be able to plant them. So I highly recommend using transplants if you're going to plant them this month. This is my second year in a row planting Waltham 29 broccoli, and it's turning out really well. Let's take a look right here at this broccoli plant, and I'll show you how the head is beginning to form. If we take a look right into the center of the plant, you can see the head is beginning to form. It's not ready and it's not big enough yet to harvest, but it's well on its way. Now I also want to point out that all of these leaves on the exterior are also edible. Sometimes throughout the growing season, I will prune off some of the broccoli leaves or the Brussels sprout leaves or the exterior cabbage leaves. And sometimes I cook them in the skillet just like you would like a collard green and make it really tender. But lately what I've been doing is actually making my own greens powder. Sometimes I don't feel like eating greens, and these ones are probably not the best for a salad, at least not as your primary green for a salad. They're a little bit too tough for that. So what I've been doing is dehydrating them and then powdering them into a greens powder. And then I can just mix it into my soups, or I can mix it into a smoothie, or even just shake it up with some water and basically take a shot of greens. It's a great way to pack in some extra vitamins and minerals in your diet, and even make use of some of these exterior leaves that are less commonly used in cooking. The next crop is cabbage. Now cabbage takes a lot longer than some of your leafy greens to grow. Right here I've got a red acre cabbage. Let's take a closer look at how the head is forming on that one. If you take a look right in the center, you can see it's heading up. Although it's still not ready to harvest, and I know I have it positioned pretty close against that fence. Cauliflower is another brassica that you can start in the month of January, but again, start with transplants since they take so long. Cauliflowers are pretty neat actually, because once they start forming a head, you'll actually need to protect that head from sunburn, especially in Florida, by folding in some of these outer leaves and like clipping or clothespinning them together to protect that white head from getting sunburned. So I can't wait to try that. This is my first time really growing cauliflower. Last year I tried it and it just didn't even head up. This one looks much better than mine did last year. I've got some really compost-rich soil in here, so I'm excited for that, even though it's going to take a little bit longer to get that head to form. Now, if you're interested in growing Brussels sprouts, now is probably your last chance to get some transplants in the ground. I would not start from seed right now. It's probably going to get too hot and you'll get too much pest pressure before harvest time if you start them from seed right now. Brussels sprouts take really like 5 to 6 months to grow from seed. Now I want to show you up close how they grow in case you've never grown them before. Now you can actually see the sprouts starting to form right above those leaves and right on the stem. Now these leaves are edible just like the exterior broccoli leaves and the exterior cabbage leaves, but they're tough like cabbage, so you might not want to eat them raw. You'd probably cook them in a skillet like you would Brussels sprouts, but you'll definitely want to cook them to get them a little bit tender. When I first started gardening and realized how Brussels sprouts grow, I was highly disappointed that I cannot just find Brussels sprout leaves or broccoli leaves in the grocery store. It just seems like highly wasteful. I'm really curious to know what farmers might do with all of these excess leaves. I think they just chop and drop to make harvesting easier. But if you guys know how farmers handle these exterior leaves, drop a comment below. I'd love to know what they do with them. Also in the brassica family, we have Chinese cabbage. Chinese cabbage includes Napa cabbage and bok choy. Mine's been growing for a couple months and is heading up pretty nicely. These Napa cabbages actually make more of an oval shaped head instead of the round head like a traditional cabbage. Now, even though you can plant bok choy in the cooler months in Florida, just know that it doesn't like temperature swings. You can see right behind me, I've got one right here that's bolting, and this one's actually bolting too, which it does when the temperatures are too hot or the temperature swings are all over the place like they are in winter in Florida. I don't know about you guys, but in December, I was wearing shorts and short sleeves, and now today I'm wearing my biggest winter coat for this Arctic frost. And so the bok choy is really not liking the temperature swings. So keep that in mind. Maybe choose something like a joy choy hybrid, which does a little bit better with the temperature swings. Here is my bolting bok choy. You can see the florets growing on the inside. I may save this one for seed since I already see some flowers in there. Same with this one. It's bolting bok choy. But if we look over here at my joy choy, the joy choy shows no signs of bolting, so it's handling the temperature swings much better. Now let's talk about root veggies. Beets take about 60 days to harvest at least, maybe a little bit longer, and they love cooler weather. So for South Florida, this is probably the last month you're going to want to plant any beets. This one right here is a golden beet, which I purchased from Jera's garden. And you can see it grows into this nice golden round shape, and it does really well in the cooler weather. Make sure you plant it in a sunny spot because I've got some back here that are being shaded out by the cabbage leaves and they're barely even bulbing up. The next crop is radishes. Radishes are a bulbing vegetable that grow really quickly, sometimes even 30 days. Now these I'm sure are probably way overgrown at this point. I meant to harvest them a few weeks ago, but my kids have been off school and my husband was home, so we were doing all kinds of home improvement projects. So I neglected the garden for a couple weeks and I'm probably about to pay for it when I harvest these giant radishes. Oh my goodness, that is really too big for a radish, let's be honest. The last root veggie you can plant in January in Florida is turnips. If you can believe it, this entire patch right here is full of turnips. And I really probably should have harvested them a couple weeks ago, but again, the kids and the home improvement projects just took over my time. So let's harvest them right now. They're kind of prickly, but you can see these are purple top white globe turnips. And I forgot my gloves, they're in the garage. But oh my goodness. That's the biggest turnip I have ever grown. Look at that thing. Let's see how many we get. Look at how many giant turnips these are. We have got to eat these for dinner tonight and maybe tomorrow and the next day. Let me know in the comments below if you guys have ever harvested turnips this big. Now, I'm pretty sure the taste peaks when they're a little bit smaller, but here we are. Life goes on. They don't even fit in my harvest basket. This is like the best problem ever. The next crop we can plant in January is snow peas. Snow peas and sugar snap peas both have edible pods and peas, so it's a great crop to grow, especially if you want to have some garden snacks, but they're definitely going to need some trellises for support. I haven't bought my seeds yet, so if you guys have a variety that you would highly suggest that I grow for sugar snap peas or snow peas, drop a comment below and let me know. Also, if you're enjoying this video, do me a favor and hit that like button and subscribe. I do these videos once a month and it really helps out the channel if you engage with the video a little bit. The next crop might be the most popular gardening vegetable around. It's tomatoes. Now I planted this one, it's a Cherokee purple tomato. I've got some tomatoes growing on it and it looks like it's gonna do really well, except we've got some cold weather coming and I'm not sure if I'm going to succeed at getting a harvest before that cold weather kills the plant. These ones I may not be able to harvest before the plant gets some frost damage, or we may not even get a frost. I'm in Melbourne, Florida, and so far during this Arctic blast the lowest temperature is supposed to be 38. So I might be okay, even though tomatoes sometimes are damaged under 40 degrees. I just ordered a variety I have not grown before. It's called Sanibel tomato, and the reason I ordered it is because it was specifically bred to be resistant to root knot nematodes. It contains what's called the MI gene, so I'm gonna give that one a shot and see if I can keep it healthy in my raised bed that previously had a root knot nematode problem. One of the home improvement projects I did over this winter break was setting up this seed starting station. I'm gonna do a whole separate video about how I set it up and all the products I used to set it up. But for now, let's take a look at some of the peppers and the eggplants I've got going in the trays. Right here, I've got 2 Megatron jalapeno plants growing. I already thinned them out, so I've only got 1 per cell. I started these in December, so they would be transplant size, hopefully by February or March, but it's early January. It's not too late to start these from seed, so go ahead and do it if you haven't done it. I've also got a Tabasco pepper back here. I've got a Black Beauty eggplant, a Carolina Wonder bell pepper, and another Carolina Wonder bell pepper. I have previously grown California Wonder and they didn't do very well, and since then I've learned that California Wonder are really susceptible to root knot nematodes, and Carolina Wonder was actually bred to be resistant to root knot nematodes. So these ones I think should do a lot better in my garden than those ones. And back here I've got a cayenne pepper. Peppers are always so interesting. I feel like there's a million varieties and everyone's got something different. So drop a comment below and let me know what you're growing this year. The next 4 crops are cucurbits. So we're talking about cantaloupes, cucumbers, squashes, and watermelon. Now it may be a little bit early for some of you to start these cucurbits. All of these are going to be frost sensitive, so if you're in an area that actually has a frost, you're probably going to want to wait until at least the last frost date, or you can plan to try to cover up those young plants if you try to squeeze them in a little bit early. South Florida, you're probably okay to plant in January. As for me, I'm probably going to direct sow them next week after this Arctic blast is done, and I'm going to start with cantaloupe and then cucumbers. Now cucumbers, I grew successfully my very first year gardening, and I have yet to repeat that success. It seems like they start and then some kind of disease gets them and then they die. So I'm hoping starting them in mid-January will help them reach harvest before some of those diseases take over. And also I chose a new variety this year. Instead of the Boston pickling or the Market More cucumbers, I'm going to go with a China Jade cucumber. I picked these up from Jera's garden again. It's a variety that she recommends growing here in Florida, and these ones reach maturity really quickly. I've learned that that's a big factor in whether or not you can succeed with growing cucurbits here in Florida. Look for the varieties that mature really quickly. For squash, I'm going to try zucchini again, but I got another variety from Jera. This is a gray zucchini squash, and I'm going to plant these pretty much at the same time as the cucumbers. And you know what? If my first one fails for some reason, like it dies in the frost and I don't protect it properly from the frost, I can just try again a couple weeks later, and I didn't really lose anything, you know. The last one is watermelons. I grew some watermelon last year and the vines went well, but it just didn't do much flowering. I think it needed a lot more nutrients in the soil than I was giving it. So I'm going to try that again this year. I'd love to have a nice big homegrown watermelon ready to harvest when the weather warms up. My kids love it, and they especially love it when I cut it up and I freeze it. They love to eat it frozen. In Florida, January is one of the last months we should really be planting our seed potatoes for Irish potatoes. These right here are Yukon Gold potatoes that I just planted probably in mid-December, and I've got some of them sprouting up. So I had ordered the Yukon Gold seed potatoes and I left them on my dining table until I saw the sprouts coming out of the eyes, and then I cut them up into small pieces and planted them last month. Potatoes are some of the most fun crops to grow because they really are just working totally under the surface, and you really have no idea how well it's going until it's time to harvest. So if you haven't grown them before, I highly recommend at least getting a fabric grow bag and trying some Irish potatoes. The next crop is green onions. Green onions are, I swear, the easiest. If you're a beginner gardener in Florida, definitely start some green onions. They're so easy to throw on top of a meal as a garnish, and you just pop them in. You can start from seed, put them in the garden, or you can start from grocery store cuttings. They just keep on going. This is only like maybe 8 green onion plants, and this is more than enough for me and my family to use as garnish on some of our meals. If you look closely right here, you can see my last crop to plant in January, and that is cilantro. I want to talk about more than just cilantro, so really the last crop is herbs. But cilantro is a nice annual crop that does really well in cooler temperatures in Florida. So now is a great time to plant it so you can get a ton of harvest in before that weather heats up too much and causes the cilantro to bolt. It's actually really easy to start too. All I do is take a seed packet and pour the seeds directly in the soil, and then in a few weeks you'll have some cilantro. Another good herb to plant right now, or maybe right after a frost if you're in a part of Florida that frosts, is basil. Basil does well in kind of moderate temperatures, so not cold but not hot either. But it's been really happy this year. I've got a lot of basil growing. Another annual herb that does well in cooler temperatures in Florida is parsley. Now it's a great time to plant parsley. Don't worry, this stuff is much easier to grow than like cilantro. This stuff will just keep going and going. And last year I even got some black swallowtail caterpillars all over my parsley in the late spring. So I highly recommend planting some parsley right now. Now that you've made it to the end of the video, I want to give you a little bonus, which is sharing some of my home improvement things that I did over the winter break. Right here you can see I have planted 16 podocarpus shrubs to build up a privacy wall right along my fence between me and my neighbor. Now it's going to take some time to fill in and actually give me that privacy effect, but I did the planting and we did the edging, and it's going to look great once that grass fills in to cover back in where I did the edging. Over here I had this nice little corner, so again we did some edging and I planted my Barbados cherry tree in the ground. Hopefully I'll get a bunch more fruit this year. It seemed like it wasn't happy in the planter that I had it in, so this is what I did. Now this is the side of my house. You can see over here on the corner of the screen, that's the privacy shrub area that we just planted out. And you can see these palm trees right here. They're actually really annoying because they're planted way too close to the windows, and all they do is brush up against the window and cause issues. So once these privacy shrubs fill in and give us that privacy effect, we're gonna be pulling out and relocating those palm trees somewhere else in the yard. But that's gonna free up this entire side yard for something interesting. I'm thinking of getting some gutters installed to help with the washout, and then maybe doing something like a tea and medicinal herb area in a raised bed, and maybe some flowers going up a trellis in between the windows. And right here you can see some of the utilities that we've got, like the AC and the tankless water heater, and I want to plant some more shrubs in that area to kind of hide that in a more natural way. I'm tired of looking at it in the back of my videos. So if you have any ideas about how I can use this space effectively, let me know. It gets really great sun. I just need to add gutters to control some of that water that runs off the roof. That's it for today's video, guys. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.